Hey, today we are talking about some reasons why English is difficult, and of course, some tips to make it easier. Let's go. First of all, we have some confusing pronunciation in English, and this is because we don't always read words the way that they look or the way that they are written. So for example, if you look at the letter combination O-U-G-H in these two words, it actually sounds completely different. Through and cough. Through and cough. So both words are spelled with O-U-G-H, but these two words sound completely different. In English, we have phonemes and graphemes. And phonemes are basically single sounds that are made of single letters. And graphemes are a single sound that's made of a group of letters. So for example, the letter A. The letter A can make the sound A, like in cat or at, okay? And the letter A can also make the sound A, for example, in the words take or cake. Now this A sound can also be made with groups of letters or graphemes. So the letter A can make the sound A, but we can also make the sound with AY, like in the word play or day, or with the letters E-I-G-H, like in the word sleigh. So as an adult English learner, you might not have ever studied phonics or phonetics or pronunciation of any kind, really. And the tip here is to take a step back and learn the individual sounds that letters make and the sounds that groups of letters make together. This will really help you with your reading and correct pronunciation. Another thing that can make English difficult is that we have a lot of grammar points and structures that are different from other languages or don't exist in other languages at all. So for example, articles in English, articles are a, an, and the. And these can be tricky for a lot of English learners because they don't exist in their language or they are used differently. Another example is verb tenses. A lot of verb tenses either don't exist or they are used completely differently in other languages, and verb tenses are often a sticking point or a difficult point for English learners. Another common challenge with grammar is prepositions. Prepositions are tricky because we use them for so many different things in so many different contexts and situations. Prepositions are these little words like in, on, at, of, to, and so on and so on, all right? Now the tip here is to focus on one grammar point at a time. It becomes more difficult when you try to improve all of your English grammar. Instead, when you identify your weak areas, so you might say, okay, I'm really struggling with prepositions. In that case, you need to focus on prepositions. Maybe you need to relearn them. As well, you need to give yourself time to practice the prepositions that you are learning. Once you feel more confident, like you've improved with that grammar point, then move on to another one. Okay, so don't worry or stress if your grammar is not perfect, that's okay. But if you do want to improve it, try focusing on one point at a time. As well, you can also pay attention to how other people are using grammar, how grammatical structures are used in written text or in books, when you're listening to someone speak, when you're watching a television show. Pay attention to how the grammar points are being used in reality, okay? This will also really help you. And whenever you're learning a new grammar point, make sure you learn in which context and what situations it's appropriate to use that specific grammar point, particularly tenses. Another thing that makes English hard is that we often have different meanings for the same word. In English, we actually use a lot of the same words to have many different meanings. And these words are common, and that can be confusing. Take, for example, the word date. Date is a very common everyday word. I'm sure that you know it. So for example, we can say, what is today's date? Today's date is Friday, November 24th. Okay, this is a really common way to use the word date. But date is also a fruit, and to date someone as a verb can mean to go out with someone romantically. You can date someone as a verb, or you can go on a date or on a dinner date, which is a noun. So here we have 4 different ways to use this one simple word, date. Okay, another example is the word season. So when it comes to climate, we have 4 seasons in Canada. We have winter, spring, summer, and fall. These are the 4 seasons, okay? Common word used as a noun, but you can also season meat or season food when you're cooking. And to season as a verb means to add spices and flavors to food as you're cooking. Okay, so again, a common word with more than one meaning. So there are lots of common everyday words in English that have more than one meaning. There are so many examples. So let me know if you want me to make a lesson on words with different meanings in the comments below, and I can do that for you. And the tip for dealing with these words that have different meanings, you don't have to go back and relearn every single word that you currently know, but moving forward, whenever you come across a new word or you learn a new word, perhaps you are reading or you keep hearing this new word, I recommend looking it up and checking whether it has more than one meaning, okay? And that way, moving forward, whenever you learn new words, you can learn them in a more comprehensive way. Next up, we have idioms. In English, we have so many idioms and expressions. And if you don't know, idioms are phrases or expressions that do not translate literally. So they mean something completely different than what they sound like. So for example, to hit the hay or to hit the sack means to go to sleep. You might hear someone say, I'm exhausted, I need to hit the hay, or I think I'm gonna hit the sack, okay? This means I'm going to go to bed. It sounds strange, but that's what it means. Another really common idiom that sounds a little bit strange is to quit something cold turkey. Now, to quit cold turkey means to quit all of a sudden, not gradually, to just completely, one day you're like, I quit, okay? So for example, he quit smoking cold turkey. So he used to smoke every day, and one day he woke up and he stopped. Okay? To quit cold turkey. Now, why are these idioms tricky? Because they do not translate literally. So a lot of times people hear a new idiom and they're very quick to translate it or to look it up in their own language, and maybe it doesn't exist, maybe it doesn't make sense, maybe it has a different meaning, or there's a different version in your language. So the tip here is to learn idioms in context. There's no need to memorize a list of random, unrelated idioms. Instead, try to learn idioms around a topic. For example, these are idioms that you can use at work. These are idioms that you can use in social situations. These are idioms you can use with your family or to talk about family, okay? As well, pay attention to how idioms are being used in common contexts like books, on TV shows, when you hear people having conversations, and so on. And try to learn the whole phrase like you would with a new word. Just learn the meaning of this phrase. Do not translate it literally word for word. Okay, so basically the example I gave you about quitting cold turkey, just learn the meaning of the whole phrase. Don't translate quit cold turkey because it probably will not make sense, okay? So learn the whole phrase as a word and learn it in a context that is realistic for you to use. Another thing that can make English hard is cultural references. Now, I've said it before that every language is attached to a culture. It comes along with a culture. And a lot of the words and expressions and phrases and jokes and ideas that we use come from popular culture, they come from our media, and sometimes it can be confusing if you're not familiar with the culture. So you might hear people making a joke that you don't understand, or using a phrase that you don't understand, or talking about a topic that you're unfamiliar with, because all of these things are connected and related to the culture. And this is true not only for English, but for every single language. And what makes it even more difficult is that popular culture, media, and social media are constantly evolving, changing. with technology, everything moves and changes so quickly. So it's really, really hard to keep up as well. And this can also be overwhelming to try to keep up with all these new phrases and all this new slang and all of the current topics that are trending. It's difficult. It's actually impossible and it's overwhelming. So I don't recommend you do that. Instead, my tip here is whatever you currently spend time watching, reading, listening to, consuming, just do so in English. So you can hear how it is discussed in English, what ideas people share in English, what phrases and vocabulary and idioms and expressions and jokes that they use in English. So instead of watching the news in your language, just watch it, read it, or listen to it in English. If you use social media in your language, try using social media platforms in English, okay? So you don't need to make a big change here, but if you are trying to stay up to date with current events and what people are talking about, if that interests you, just shift that into English and that will make a big difference. And another thing that might be making English hard is your mindset. I've heard so many people say, English is so hard, my English is so bad. This is such a common occurrence among English learners, and I get it. It can be very hard and discouraging, especially if you've been studying for a long time and you're not where you want to be, you're not seeing the improvements you want to see. I get it. It's hard, it's frustrating, and it's disheartening. However, remaining in this mindset and repeating how hard this is, how you can't do it, how you keep trying, how you're not improving, and repeating that and thinking that and staying stuck in this place is not helping you to move forward. Now, it's not magic. It's not that if you have a positive mindset, you're suddenly going to become amazing at English, unfortunately. However, it certainly does not help you if you have a negative mindset and you've convinced yourself that English is so hard that you cannot speak English, that you cannot learn it, okay? So your mindset is extremely, extremely important. I have made other videos on how to shift your mindset, how to get into the right mindset, and I can link those down below so you can check those out. This is a point that's really, really, really important. So please do go and watch those videos after this one. Now, in this lesson, we've looked at some of the practical things that might be making English hard for you. This list can also look a little different for everyone. Some of these areas will be easier and some may be more difficult, and that is okay, that is normal, and that is natural. So what you need to do is focus on the areas that are more difficult for you and take steps to improve those areas. If you have any questions or any other tips you want to share with us, drop those in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's lesson and learned something new, please leave it a like and subscribe so you don't miss future lessons like this. As well, I have a free ebook for you, English Conversations Made Simple. I will link that in the description down below so you can check it out. Thank you so much for watching, learning, and spending time here with me today. I'll see you very soon in another one.